Thank you so much. Hola, buenas tardes. That's the only Spanish you're getting from me. I'm sorry. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about the future, right? That's really what we're here to talk about. So this morning, we learned a lot about innovation. We learned a lot about learning. We learned about open platforms to change governance, all of these different things that can really help our minds change a little about the way that we think about the world we're moving into. So the thing is, to talk about the future, first I'd like to get a little bit of a pulse check from our audience. I'm curious how you feel about the future. Are you an optimist about the future? Are you a pessimist about the future? Are you sort of somewhere in the middle, maybe a little undecided about the future? So we'll just do a simple show of hands. Raise your hand if you are an optimist about the future. Yeah. Whew, all right. Raise your hand if you're a pessimist. Don't be shy. There must be one. Yeah? Be proud. It's okay. Okay, were there any others? A few of you are pessimists about the future, all right? See, and now you're like, oh, they're cool. I want to be too. Anybody undecided? Anybody somewhere in the middle? Okay, so I'd like to hear from one of the people who enthusiastically raised your hand and said, I'm an optimist. Tell me why. So someone, raise your hand again if you're an optimist. I don't remember who was. Okay, right here in the blue shirt. Could you tell us why you're an optimist about the future? No, don't look behind you, it's you. Yeah. Can you tell us why you are an optimist about the future? So it's a future of ideas, right? There's just endless possibility, right? Okay, so from a pessimist, there were only two, so there's not much to pick from. Why are you pessimistic about the future?
Well, I think we are offering too much resistance to the future.
Tell me more about that.
We need more changes, and we are too slow.
Okay, so we need more change, and we're actually moving too slowly. It's a really interesting perspective. I think that the future can be a divisive topic. It can be something that people feel really strongly about. And luckily, today, we are apparently in a room of complete optimists, which is really exciting because I think you're much less likely to boo me when I give my talk. But I think there's an opportunity in this future to convert our pessimists, to get them thinking in a new way, and to really realize that the future is, in fact, full of lots of different opportunities. So, to do that today, first I have to practice my magician skills. I practiced for 2 minutes over lunch. There we go, okay. So to start today, I just want to tell you a story about this place. So this is Earth. This is home to you, it's home to me, and it's home to 7.5 billion of our closest friends. And this Earth is one that is full of lots of challenges. We know these challenges very well. Everything from energy, environment, water, and food to governance, security, and prosperity. In fact, most everybody in this room is one of these 7.5 billion people actually working on the front lines of these challenges, actually working to solve them. And there's something interesting there, is that we have rooms full of people working to solve these challenges. And it's because there's something really unique about humans. There's something unique that we feel compelled to solve all of our problems. And we are always looking for the things that can do that. Since the time of the ancient Greeks, when the Greek goddess Panacea gave rise to the term we use today, Panacea, for a cure-all, right? Something that will cure all of the problems that we face on our planet. Every illness we have, every issue that we need to tackle. And if you look throughout time, there have been even more of these panaceas that have been out there. So maybe it was Panacea and her potion to the ancient Greeks, or if it's the red sap of the elephant tree to the Cahuilla Indians in California, or it's ginseng in traditional Chinese medicine. We are always compelled to find these magical cures. And today, I will have a moment of self-awareness. I am standing here on this stage because I live in Silicon Valley, a place that believes technology is today's panacea, that technology is the cure-all for our world. Now, we could have a very, very healthy debate about that, or possibly unhealthy debate, depending, but we're not going to get into that. What I'd rather explain is why. I'd like to explain why technology has positioned itself today as an extremely powerful force for our future. So to do that, I need to introduce you to this guy. This is Gordon Moore. Pardon me. Gordon Moore is a co-founder of Intel. And in 1965, Gordon Moore recognized something about the pace of change of technology. He saw that roughly every 18 months, the price performance of technology doubled. So this means every 18 months, the integrated circuit, in his case, was twice as powerful for half the price. That rate of change has continued, mostly consistent to this day. So in very simple terms, when we plot awesomeness over time, it looks like this. This is an exponential growth curve. You all remember math. I see you all shaking your heads. Yes, 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 yes. I was in math class. Well, this is where we are today. We are at this point of the curve that's called the knee of the curve, and it is when things start to get a little bit crazy. When the world around us maybe isn't exactly what we expect. When that pace of change of technology gets so fast. Because in exponential growth, those first few steps don't feel that ridiculous. They're pretty flat, right? 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, but then you really start that doubling trend, and the pace is something that we actually struggle to comprehend. So in technology, this trend is driven by 4 different things, and they're right here. So we have digitization, dematerialization, demonetization, and democratization. Pretty much any technology that we look at in our world that is tracking one of these exponential growth curves is going through these 4 stages. And to demonstrate that, I have this video. You know, we see the average desktop from maybe the mid-'80s to late '80s, and then gradually things start to change as this technology develops. And we see that computer gets smaller, and we see a fax machine disappear. And we see that Rolodex somehow gets absorbed into another piece of technology, and the dictionary disappears, and all of these things are condensed and modified, and eventually they're all just a bunch of apps. And this is that process of those Ds in action. So this video actually tracks technology development through about 2014. And if we push that just a couple years farther down the curve, you would know that the computer itself might disappear, and it would just be that smartphone sitting on the desk. My favorite thing here is actually when the car keys disappear, and they turn into the Uber app. But as a matter of fact, standing here on this stage in El Salvador, I can pull out my phone and I can control my car parked at my house in California. I could make the horn go, I could make the alarm go off, scare my neighbors, anything I want. So we're living in this world that has been dematerialized, right? The things that once were objects no longer are. They are digitized. What was once a physical thing, think about a photograph, is now digits. It's ones and zeros. It's something that lives inside of a device. They're demonetized, where people suddenly people are suddenly able to have access to all of these things for free. And because of that additional access, because things are free, there's democratization, where everybody can hold this right in their pockets. This trend is not exclusive, though, to the technology we see in our homes and on our desks. There are lots of different categories of exponentially advancing technology, and these are just a few of them. We have networks and computing, which includes things like our phones and our computers, but also can be extended to things like virtual reality, artificial intelligence and robotics, which I'll talk a little bit more about in just a minute, rapid manufacturing, digital fabrication, and then finally, digital biology and medicine. All of these fields are following these exact same exponential growth curves. So back to those devices in our pockets, right? We all know our dear friend Siri. For most of us, Siri, or the equivalent on a Windows device or a Samsung device or an Android device, that was the first artificial intelligence assistant that we really had a chance to interact with. But that technology, the same technology powering those types of systems, is actually doing far more than that today. This is a robot. Her name is Pepper. Has anybody here ever met Pepper? A couple of you? Cool. So Pepper's a pretty cool robot. She's really friendly. She stands about this tall, and she will just roll right up to you and start a conversation. She'll start the conversation in Japanese, but as soon as you answer in a different language, she'll switch automatically. And Pepper is the world's first emotionally intelligent robot. So what does that mean exactly? Right? She's not crying necessarily, but Pepper actually is able to read and sense your emotion based on tonal changes in your voice and the expression on your face. So that if you start talking to Pepper and you're really happy, she can respond appropriately. Or if you start talking to Pepper and you're really sad, she can try to help you and be supportive. So Pepper was developed by a company called Aldebaran Robotics in Japan, and she was actually built for the Japanese mobile phone company SoftBank. She is in SoftBank's mobile phone stores as a concierge to work with customers as they walk into the store. But the vision behind Pepper and this type of robotics is far beyond customer service and a new sales representative. The idea is to build something that can actually provide human interaction with people when humans are not available. So we imagine situations like in nursing homes or in hospitals when you really need to just get a quick check-in with a patient, or you need to understand how somebody is feeling. And what's fascinating is that research done in these fields around artificial intelligence actually shows that humans are more likely to be honest when talking to a robot. And it's because a robot will not judge you. You don't have to worry about what a robot thinks of you because you're actually telling it how you feel. So beyond these robots and technology in our pockets, we also see artificial intelligence powering really phenomenal systems like IBM Watson. Another show of hands, who's heard about IBM Watson? Several of you, right? And IBM Watson's most famous task as one of the most advanced supercomputing systems on Earth, not the most, but one of the most, its greatest task was to beat a human opponent at Jeopardy. And this happened about 5 years ago. The little-known fact behind that Jeopardy success is that the engineers at IBM actually had to down-tune Watson to participate in the game show because they didn't want to terrify the public. Because the fact was, if they had run Watson at its full capacity, it would have answered every single question first in milliseconds. But that idea is frankly a bit scary. So that was 5 years ago. Watson was out there beating people at Jeopardy and winning game shows, right? So what is it doing today? In August of 2016, so about a year ago, Watson was put to the test in a hospital in Japan. And there was a woman who was battling a very rare form of leukemia. She had a panel of doctors who were trying to treat her, and she was not responding to any of the treatments that they were offering. So her doctors, at their wits' end, turned to IBM and they said, hey, do you think we could try to use Watson and see if Watson might be able to help us crack this case? And they said, sure. So in 10 minutes, IBM Watson read and processed 20 million medical journal articles, correctly diagnosed this rare form of leukemia, and recommended a course of treatment and saved the woman's life. In 10 minutes. That was a year ago already. The pace of development of these technologies is absolutely staggering. So as these computing systems become more and more and more powerful, we also suddenly have the capacity to break down complex mysteries that we never used to be able to understand. One of my favorite examples here is it's our own DNA. Sequencing the human genome was this monumental task. It was $1 billion endeavor that today can be done for about $100. And it's predicted that in a few years, you'll be able to sequence your entire genome for less money than it costs to flush your toilet. So there's a company based in California called 23andMe. And this company was one of the first to actually offer a commercially available DNA sequencing service. Did anybody here have that done by chance, the 23andMe service? A few of us? So what they would do is they would actually have you spit in a tube and mail the tube to their lab, where they would perform DNA sequencing, and they would send you back a report. And that report looked at about 2,000 base pairs of your human DNA, 2,000 base pairs out of 1 billion or so, roughly. A very, very small piece of your DNA being sequenced. And there was a health report and a genetics report and a little bit of information about your ancestry and your demographics that they could provide you. It was powerful. It was cool. For most of us, it was our first time touching our own human code. But today, there's a company called Human Longevity Incorporated based in San Diego that is now sequencing the entire genome and giving you a report on what is called your exome. So this is the 20,000 base pairs in your DNA that actually express something in your body. That other 1 billion or 900 million, 80, whatever, we don't know what it does yet. But the 20,000 base pairs, you can now get those sequenced. I'm actually having this done right now, and they will literally be handing me a flash drive with my entire human genome on it. They told me if they printed it, it would fill an entire room with volumes of encyclopedias. So I'm really glad we have the flash drive instead. So this type of sequencing is cool. It's telling us a lot about our bodies. It's telling us a lot about our health. This up here is a woolly mammoth. It's a woolly mammoth that is 42,000 years old. And it was found in Siberian permafrost by a team of researchers from Harvard, from China, and from Russia. The researchers were able to actually extract the DNA from this woolly mammoth that was frozen in the permafrost for 42,000 years and reanimate it. I was having dinner a couple months ago with one of the people at the firm that's doing this research, and she told me something that was just absolutely fascinating. She said, you know, the thing is, we're trying to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. I said, really? And she said, there's only one problem. We can't find an elephant big enough to impregnate. That's literally the only barrier we have right now. That is where this genetic science has gotten, that the only thing standing in our way from bringing back the woolly mammoth is that our elephants are too small. The power behind this is unbelievable. And with that power and that harnessing of the genome come more phenomenal things for humans. This is news from just a couple of weeks ago that the second gene therapy treatment has been approved for cancer in the United States. This is basically a treatment that turns your own cells in your body into a disease-fighting machine. There are now 2 treatments approved. More incredible yet, researchers are using CRISPR, which is a gene editing software, to delete HIV from mice. Not treat, not cure, not prevent, to delete something from a living organism. You think about the implications of this. If we can delete a disease, what else could we delete? Could we delete learning disabilities? Could we delete any of the other host of challenges that we begin to learn live right inside our own code? So when we think about our bodies, there's a common theme here. We also really love to measure our bodies, right? Another show of hands, who here is wearing a wearable of some sort, right? Tracking your steps, tracking something. I know a bunch of you are lying because I can see them on your wrists, right? We love these things. Fun fact, It's not new. You're not cool. We've been doing this since about 1879 when Tiffany created the first pedometer. And it was actually built for workers who were in mines, and it was built to measure distances. And suddenly people realized, hey, I really like measuring my steps. And it became a fashionable thing to have. And now you fast forward to today, and these are 3 live visualizations of wearables that I actually have, that I use on my body. One of them clips to my belt, and it measures every single breath that I take. I know you're wondering why, right? It tells me if I'm focused, it tells me if I'm nervous, it tells me if I need to stand up and take a break, all based on my breath measurement. The middle one is actually a wearable for my bed that tells me how many times I turn over and monitors my body temperature and my breathing rate and the ambient temperature in the room so that I can try to get better sleep. And the one on the end is actually a bodysuit that I am not wearing now, and I will not show you pictures of because it is really tight. And it actually monitors the activation in every muscle in your body as you exercise to make sure that you're maximizing the way that you're exercising and improving your body. So we're actually getting able to measure all of these different elements of our own health. The sensors that are inside of the phone and the wearables and all of these technologies we use at the same time are powering things like self-driving cars that are now plying our roads all around the world. The very first self-driving car with no human in it actually just went onto a public road in California 2 days ago. Again, this pace is accelerating. And this is one of my favorite examples. What happens with all of these technologies is that they begin to converge. They come together, and when you put them together, when you put together sensors, when you put together rapid manufacturing, when you put together nanotechnology, all of these elements, you begin to have a compounding effect, and you can do really, really phenomenal things. So this picture is of a company called Made in Space. You might guess from the name, they make things in space. And what they did was built the world's first zero-gravity 3D printer. It was built for use on the International Space Station and actually was launched in 2014, so 3 years ago already. In April 2014, this went up to the International Space Station, and it was able to create objects in space. So let's say an astronaut lost a wrench on the space station. Believe it or not, they lose things all the time. Instead of ordering one from NASA and having it shipped up on the next payload, NASA emails them a wrench, and they click a button, and they can print it right there on the space station. But that was version 1 of this technology, launched in 2014. Today, there's a 3rd-generation commercial-grade printer that is actually able to take orders from anybody on the planet that wants to have something manufactured in space. And some of the things we actually want to do in space are, for example, hazardous manufacturing processes. It'd be amazing if we could take those off of the planet. Or it's actually possible to make things in space that we can't make here on Earth because of the properties of zero gravity. So for example, one of the things that they're investigating currently is how to make a fiber optic cable with a greater density and quality than anything available on this planet. And you can only do it because you're manufacturing in space. Or there's the deal they just signed with NASA to manufacture humanity's first off-Earth megastructures. They're building a 3D printer that will just orbit the Earth and float in space and continue printing as it goes. And its first project is to build a satellite array that is 1 kilometer across. Like, we could actually make the Death Star. This is possible, right? And these are happening today. These are not what ifs. These are not might we. These are things that are literally happening in the world today. So just to illustrate my point with one more example, I want everybody to take your phone out of your pocket. I know everyone has it, so just take out your phone. Pick it up, come on, there we go. And just give it a little love, okay? Just give it a hug, stroke it a little, don't kiss it, they're really dirty, please. But just love your phone for a second. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna tell you a story. No, get off Tinder, stop, okay. In the 1960s, we decided we wanted to go to space. We wanted to go to the moon. as humanity, right? And when that happened, NASA worked with MIT to develop what was called the Apollo Control Module. And at the time, it was designed and described by IBM as the most complex system ever built by man. And it took humans in a metal capsule, and it shot them to the moon, and it landed them there safely, and got them back home. The most complex lines of code ever written. And today, that phone that you are hugging or you put back in your pocket, that phone is about 32,568 times faster than the Apollo Control Module. It has about 80,000 times the functional memory of the Apollo Control Module. And as a matter of fact, the thumb drive that I used to put my presentation on this computer is faster and more powerful than the Apollo Control Module. That is what exponential change looks like. That is what exponential change feels like. We are all literally rocket scientists. So that's today. When we start thinking about the next decade, the next 2 decades, things get even crazier. So Ray Kurzweil is one of the co-founders of Singularity University. He likes to do this thing where he periodically makes predictions about what's going to come in the next couple of decades. He's been doing this for many years, and to this point, he has an 86% accuracy rate in his predictions. So just keep that one in mind. This is from his most recent set of predictions for what we have to look forward to in the next couple of decades. The first one is the $1,000 human brain. This does not mean you'll be selling your brain for $1,000. This means that you will be able to get a computer that fits in the palm of your hand that has the equivalent processing power of the human brain. That means it can process 10 to the 16th trillion calculations every second. You will hold it in your hand for $1,000. He's predicting an Internet of everything. We've heard of IoT, Internet of Things. His version is the Internet of everything, where it's not just our light bulbs that are connected to the Internet, but it's our clothing embedded with sensors that monitor our health. It's everything in our home talking to one another, so that our devices are interactive and that massive pool of data that we're collecting from our sensors actually begins to mean something. It can be applied, it can be analyzed. This is a world where your toilet will know you are sick before you do. One of his other predictions is that we will live in a world of 8 billion connected humans. And this is a really remarkable idea. We can all sit here in this room with our phones and our computers and know that we're well connected to the internet, but that's still not a majority of people on Earth who can say that. But as these technologies become digitized, become dematerialized, become demonetized, become democratized, they spread across the world much more quickly, and they give this same type of access and the same type of capability to people all over the world. So imagine what that means for business, for governance, for our social structures when 8 billion people can talk to each other and have access to the same information. So that's where we are today. We're at the knee of the curve. And I want to ask, does anybody in the room feel a little bit like this? Only one, wow, okay. Right, it can be a little scary to be at this point. And it's because this curve that we're on, that people might like to call techno-optimism, it's branching from what we think of as reality. We as humans are hardwired to think about a linear future. We expect the future to be better, but only a little bit better than yesterday. It's the way that we were built to survive. But today, that's just not the fact. That's not the case. The world is advancing at a pace that we have not been prepared for. So what happens at that point, at that breaking point between reality and techno-optimism, is massive disruption. It's where everything in our world starts to break down a little bit. The hard fact here is that today is the slowest day of the rest of your life. Today is the slowest day of the rest of your life. Instead of thinking about that as disruption, though, I prefer to think about this as an opportunity. And I think you will too, because we're in a room of all optimists. What we have an opportunity for at this point is a human revolution, where it isn't just technology advancing at this rate, but we ourselves can begin to advance and develop and change. When we think about the way technology allows us to communicate so differently, with instant translation from Google, or emoji to tell anybody exactly how you feel. It changes the way that we learn, where schools don't need to look like this anymore. We don't need to push information to others in specific places because we have these incredible resources where literally every ounce of information possessed by humanity is at your fingertips. It's this world where we can teleport ourselves through virtual reality to a multi-million-dollar scientific research lab without ever leaving home. It's a world where the jobs that we have will begin to change because technology and robots and computers do a lot of things better than humans. And we will no longer need to do the jobs that are dirty and dangerous and repetitive. We'll be able to tap into what matters to us, our passions, our strengths, our interests, and align those with the needs and opportunities in the world. I'm guessing there are a lot of parents out here right now, and I'm curious, have you ever told one of your kids, or maybe a nephew or a niece, just a friend, have you ever told them that they should be either a doctor, an accountant, or a pharmacist? Anyone? You're lying. Yeah, because you know what's coming already, see? Those are the top 3 careers most likely to be disrupted in the next 5 years. What we've once thought of as reliable, consistent, good, solid careers are changing every single day, and we need to make sure that we are preparing for that. This is also going to be a revolution in the way that we structure ourselves as a society, the way that we live as a people. I have a pop quiz for you on geography. What are the 3 largest countries in the world by population? Who can tell me number 1? China, beautiful. Number 2? India. Number 3? Number 3 always gets people. Number 3 is the United States. Okay, so China, India, the United States. Here we go. Top 3 largest countries on Earth. I have to make an argument that this is completely incorrect. There are 2 more that we're missing. These are Facebook and Twitter, right? I know somebody out here right now is thinking, Brett, Facebook is a social network, right? Okay, you're right, but just hear me out. What is it that unites a nation? What is it that defines a nation? It is common language, culture, norms. We all know what it means to like. We all know what it means to poke. We all know what it means to Facebook. It's become a verb, right? We have a common language. We have a common culture. We have common norms. Common currency platform. Any one of those, it's actually 2 billion people now on Facebook, can send money directly to another one of those 2 billion people, the click of a button. You have common governance. Every one of us adheres to the exact same terms and conditions when we sign up for Facebook. We are part of the same government. We all have common security, right? There's an army of digital security people at Facebook protecting every one of those 2 billion citizens of the Facebook nation. Even things like national pride. When we think about disasters happening around the world, right? And people go onto Facebook and they change their profile picture to have the flag over the front of it. But they've never been there, they don't speak the language, they don't even like the food. But they want to be there in solidarity with another person because they identify with their fellow citizens of that nation. And the thing is, these entities are actually starting to operate as nations. They're starting to do the things that nations were once only able to do. So for example, April 7th, 2009 in Chisinau, Moldova was the world's first Twitter rebellion. This was started by 3 people who decided to get some friends together in the central square of Chisinau because they weren't happy with the government. It led to 50,000 people coming out and eventually led to a referendum on the government, and later that year, new power was installed. Kathmandu, Nepal, in April 2015, a devastating earthquake struck. Countries all around the world raced to their aid and said, we want to help, we want to help. The United States, USAID, the EU coughed up $10 million, $3 million within days. But by the end of that first week after the disaster, who do you think was the #1 contributor? You know it. Facebook. And this was not just a rich corporation handing over cash, this was driven by individual contributions from the citizens of Facebook, from all of us as individuals contributing and making a decision about what our nation would do. In fact, at the end of the day, only one entity was able to beat Facebook, and that was the whole world. Literally the whole world combined was the only one to best them. So this is our new flag. You should just know. It'll be waving there really soon. But the point this brings me to is I'm not a good magician. There we go. Is that this revolution that we have an opportunity to see in our world is not just one of disruption. It's not just one of that screaming face emoji. It's a revolution in the way that we're going to live, and that we have this amazing opportunity because we are a people who have power and access that is completely unprecedented. We are people who can begin to be driven by purpose because we have the freedom to replace all of those rote tasks with the technology we're developing. And we're a people that is beginning to really live together. So there's this principle in computer science, and it reads like this: when a component in a system changes by an order of magnitude, it often necessitates a redesign of the fundamental building blocks of that system. I know it's a lot of words, right? So when a component in a system changes by an order of magnitude, we have that. We have all of these components changing by orders of magnitude. It often necessitates a redesign of the fundamentals of that system. So what I want you to do the rest of today and tomorrow, and as you go back to your lives and your work, doing great things in the world, I want you to imagine how you want to act in this future. And I want you to imagine what your fundamental building blocks are. What are the pieces of your organization? What are the pieces of your mission? What are the pieces of your life that might just need to be redesigned a little bit to take advantage of what we have, to take advantage of this future? I see this future where we have every ounce of humanity's knowledge available at our fingertips, where the definitions of communities and nations are literally changing by the day, where the issues that once divided us can actually become the issues that unite us, and where technology is not at all a panacea, but rather technology is a tool. Technology is a tool for NGOs to do their work more effectively and in new ways. It's a tool for governments to be more efficient and transparent. And it's a tool for people. It's a tool for you, it's a tool for me, it's a tool for 7.5 billion of our closest friends to be that cure-all ourselves. Thank you so much.